Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here on a election eve here in Virginia.
It's the get out the vote edition of RFK Refugees.
Yes, if you're listening to this now live and you are listening on our podcast, make sure to get out and vote tomorrow. It's always important to do that. Definitely get out and do that. We wish DC would get out the wins, but unfortunately that didn't happen. They are circling the drain a bit this season. We'll get into a little bit of that. Talk about also some positive news about the Spirit at least making the playoffs, getting a home game. Lots of other things to talk about. But first, John, how are you doing, my friend? How was your weekend?
I am finally now not sick, so I didn't go to the game on Sunday because I think I told the Jordan with the Spirit, I was like, I did not want to cough or something in the press box and have like 11 eyeballs snapped to my head, so I just stayed home and watched the game on TV. But I think now, finally, after a week, I wonder if this is true for you too, Ted. Like, because I've been basically home for 2 years, like my immune system is just like 3 white blood cells bouncing around. So I don't think like I've had a cold virus to react to in 2 years. So my body was just like, I'm gonna make you miserable. I'm gonna make you suffer.
I always get the typical like changing of the seasons type of cold. I don't know what it is. It always seems, for me, it's always like around, once, October, it starts. Virginia weather's crazy in case you don't know, listening on the show, most of you do. It's always like around this time, it's like 60, 70 degree weather. Then it's like 50, 40. And then it like at night it's cold, at the day it's warm. And my body just doesn't know how to react to that. So actually, I think it was at least a couple weeks ago, I was down with some sort of cold or some sort of viral infection. Took the COVID test, make sure it wasn't COVID. But yeah, so wasn't feeling good, and it took a minute for me to recover. I kind of thought I would bounce back, and it definitely took a minute for me to fully recover from that. So I definitely get the feeling that the immune system was not cranking as it should.
That's right.
It's certainly cranking for protecting from COVID, but not in the other sense.
All the antibodies are all like COVID shaped antibodies. Like all the ones for your cold and flu are just like, I'm tired. I don't want to do anything anymore. Anyway. Yeah. Enough cold talk. Let's talk DC disappointment. You want to start there?
DC disappointment. I do want to take a mention that my weekend was.
Sorry, Ted. I apologize. Ted, how was your weekend? How rude.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, I know you don't care. It's okay.
I do care. Hey, I'm sorry.
You don't know. My weekend was soccer wise was not great. I guess the Spirit rescued the weekend. It feels like one of my teams is rescuing the weekend. I think Liverpool, disappointing draw with Brighton. Of course, then the DC event, the DC game was extremely disappointing. And then it's like I got like buried. At least last week, it was like disappointment kind of all at once. This just kind of felt like I watched DC, get smacked 3-1. I, felt the euphoria of seeing my team take a lead and say, oh, here we go. Like, we're going to get this win. We're going to be set up great heading into the last game of the season. We're going to, make the playoffs and everything. And then just to watch it kind of just all just wither away. And then to have that experience again, watching the Richmond Kickers, the Kickers did make the playoffs, so they will be playing in the playoffs. But, the aspirations of the Kickers for me versus the aspirations for DC right now are very different. I would not be upset about not getting a home game. I was pretty upset not to get a home game for the Richmond Kickers. All they needed to do was get a point against a team that is pretty much average or below average. Akira Fitzgerald did not have his usual amazing game. He's been a huge part of why this team has kind of stuck in here and made a run to make the playoffs. Did not have a good game. They dropped 4-2. Now they have to go back to Tucson on Saturday.
Frequent flyer miles to Arizona.
Yeah, so they're getting all those frequent flyer miles. I don't know where it goes to.
Got to be direct out of Richmond, right? There's no way they drive up to DC, you think?
I hope. I don't know. Honestly, I do not know. I'm sure it's coach. I'm sure maybe there's.
I think it probably is. Yeah.
I'm sure it's connecting flights at some point.
Yeah, they have like a 12-hour layover in like Minnesota on one of the games.
Maybe, possibly. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to know what the flight. I'm sure we'll get no information on that. hopefully they can come out with a win next week. It's going to be kind of a weird one, kind of how the season shaked out and the playoffs shake out. Disappointing though. I was very much excited about the prospect of seeing a playoff game at City Stadium. So I guess I'll have to wait.
They got to win.
Hopefully
one.
DC. Yeah, what's that? Maybe they'll win a game. Yeah, but it'll be. I want them to win, of course. It's nice when you can see it sort of in person instead of on a stream, shot on an iPhone.
Right. Well, just a quick thank you to SMC Ultra for resubbing with his Amazon Prime subscription. A reminder to the rest of you folks who would like to. Everyone who has Amazon Prime has a free monthly subscription that they can give to any Twitch channel. We hope you'll give it to us because when you do, we get $2. So we love $2. It costs you nothing and gives us $2. So think about that. Question for you. I'm gonna indulge here in my Richmond Kickers curiosity for you. I think we just lost 5 listeners. But what is do you know what happens to League One when all these MLS 2 teams disappear? Is that likely to drive more USL Championship teams down to give you a more robust league versus are there 9 teams right now?
Yeah, there are 12 teams, no 10 teams right now,
and two of them are MLS 2 clubs, right? And New England and Toronto.
Correct. I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to pull up and make sure I get them all. They actually have 3. They have New England Revolution. So no, 4. They have Fort Lauderdale, New England Revolution 2, Toronto 2, and North Texas. So those teams going out. I think they've already announced that there are going to be some teams that are going to be replacing them. I believe Charlie Davies is starting a team up in New Hampshire. Not sure on the time frame. So here it is. They have Central Valley Fuego SC from Fresno, California. Northern FC. Colorado Hailstorm from Windsor, Colorado. Fort Wayne FC from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I think DeMarcus Beasley's a part of that. Lexington was just announced as a team. And Spokane, Washington is also
all the major metropolitan areas.
So they're gonna replace. I think the biggest part about it is getting some teams out west because right now it's just Tucson and North Texas are like and I guess Omaha kind of falls in there. But like as far as most Western goes, like Tucson's like your most Western team. I think the funny thing about League One is it's supposed to be like, oh, we're going to be a regional league to start out and we're going to kind of grow, and then like that didn't really happen. But the Central Valley Fuego, Northern Colorado Hailstorm are all joining next year. Fort Wayne, Lexington, and Spokane are all joining the year after that. So I think they're pretty much on pace to kind of replace some of those teams. I think we could see some teams drop down, maybe to fill that in. They might just roll with 10 teams next year. I think that's how they started. We'll see what happens. And I don't know if there are any teams that have been announced as being existing, so to speak, it's remaining in League One. I think all the MLS teams I've talked about that they're going to leave, and as a fan, I'm kind of happy about it a little bit, because it's kind of disheartening to sit down and get excited about a crucial game between the Richmond Kickers and the Toronto FC2 played at 4 p.m. on a training pitch. They play on the same field. It literally is a training pitch. I watched where they made the playoffs was Toronto FC2 versus New England Revolution 2, and it was at 4 p.m. on a work week. I think it was like on a Wednesday or something like that. So I'm happy that there's going to be crowds. The crowd at Tucson wasn't fantastic, but at least it was a home crowd. It was people that wanted to come out and watch the team play.
Ted, my gift for you is I'm going to watch this playoff game. I'm going to watch my first Kickers game of the year, and it's going to be this game. So
fair enough. It's going to be at like 10 o'clock. I hope you know that, right?
Okay, well that's still. I said I would do it. I will do it. Gregory in the chat. First of all, Greg, thanks for being once again king of gifted subs. We appreciate that. But he asked, "Is Loudoun United going away too?" That's been a question that's not really been resolved totally yet. There is an indication, I believe, that Loudoun and maybe 2 other MLS sides that were hesitant to fold it right away, but they signed a one more year commitment, basically, I believe.
Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, Loudoun has basically they had already committed, sort of had a contractual commitment. Now, USL could say, you know what, just get out of here. They
just
could
for everyone's benefit, just go.
it could certainly happen for that. I don't know what sort of fees would be involved there. But yeah, I mean, basically, I think Loudon will remain in the league. I think for another year is the idea. And they're going to start their own league. Apparently, independent clubs are going to be joining them. I think Rochester was rumored as being a team that was going to join the new like MLS D3 league or whatever. So. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. That's going to be interesting. And USL apparently getting promotion relegation. That was also a story that dropped.
Exciting.
Looking at it,
so. Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think too. I think the thing about that is interesting. The concern about being USL Championship or USL League One is anyone who's going to a Loudoun game going because they're playing Hartford United? No. No one is. No one cares who they're playing. They're going because they want to go see a soccer game in person. That's all it is. So if it's them or if it's Tucson or if it's Spokane, it does not matter at all. One bit. It makes it maybe they'll be more exciting because I think that makes it more likelihood that they're going to play. They're already sort of committing to it. If you look at who's starting these games, Jackson Hopkins, my Fredericksburg player, is an academy kid, and he's been starting almost every game over players who are USL veterans. So they've already sort of committed to that bit. And I think that once no team around them is going sort of, spending any kind of money whatsoever, then the games will be more even. And then it'll be more exciting to watch Loudoun play because there's a chance they might win more often.
But, my one of my, I guess, sort of biggest concerns, I guess, about, the MLS league is that, the reserve division existed at one point. Now, I think there are some very big differences as to what, and I think there's been some good points raised about, by having these teams commit to playing in the USL, it makes them want to put a product on the field. They want to go out and win games. They want to, the experience that, if you've ever been to a Richmond Kickers game, so the way the old I know you haven't. I keep saying you're going to go. The way the old stadium is designed is basically the end line goes almost all the way to the fan. Like literally, when the players step back to take a corner kick, they're right in the sort of Red Army section. If you've ever watched the game, and those types of atmospheres, I mean, that's an important thing for a young player to experience. Are they going to get that in this reserve division where they're going to be playing in front of, either they're going to be, renting out an empty Gillette Stadium, are they going to get the same type of experience of actually playing in front of, even if it's a small crowd, in front of a hostile crowd? We are extremely hostile to opponents taking quarter kicks. We yell at them. We yell their names. We do all kinds of, yelling at them. All respectful, nothing like truly nasty, but certainly just, we make it tough on them. And those are the types of experiences. And we've gotten in players that we've had players flip us off. We had Orlando players flip us off. So, I mean, all those types of things I think are important for young players to go through. And those are types of experiences they're not going to get it in sort of an MLS reserve division.
All I'll say is MLS Reserve Division legend Chris Wondolowski played a lot of games in the Reserve Division before he made it to MLS. So I would say there's not a lot of deep gems that you could unearth from those days. But I would also say there's not a huge number of players who've graduated from the USL Championship MLS sides to go up. I think Caden Clark played some in New York Rebels too, but I think he was already sort of a known quantity. I'm trying to think of other players that really sort of came out of nothing and got that chance.
Where current MLS, current New England Revolution goalkeeper of the year candidate.
I do. Yeah. Why don't you tell that? Why don't you tell everybody else?
Yeah, he played at Richmond. He was actually at Richmond early in his career. So I mean, I hope we at least see some MLS teams recognize that, it might be good to get this player out into an actual, more professional setting. Academy kids, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's fine. Have them play there. But if you got a guy who's 19, 20, maybe they're just not there yet, maybe loan them out to a USL side. Maybe loan them out to a team where they can, actually get in sort of a more professional setting, professional environment in games that really are really going to have a consequence. You have a team on that other side that's really trying to go out there. So I'll be curious to see if that still exists, I guess, as a maybe it's sort of, because I think a lot of those sort of loans from MLS have really dried up. since the last time I think the Kickers got a guy from Columbus at one point in the season, and that was because Columbus didn't have a reserve team, and I think a lot of that's kind of stopped as sort of a lot of USL teams have sort of started up, and there's been those affiliation deals and everything like that. So I'll be curious to see kind of what this new frontier brings. I'll be curious to see what USL can do. I'm excited. I'm excited about this is the first league that's like, let's give this promotion relegation thing a shot. Let's see what we can do with it. And it's almost set up with how the league's named. So
speaking of players that should be loaned to get more experience, and we'll talk about DC United next year. It was a long USL riff, the longest yet.
Yeah.
Moses Nyman hasn't played 90 minutes since May 14th and hasn't played more than 70 minutes since July 22nd. I'm sorry. He played 77 on August 9th. But my point is, he's injured now, and that's fine. But some of this time was not that. And a player, this is definitely a lost year for Moses Nyman's development with DC United. And a player that I think you and I and everyone else was looking to really make a big step because of the attention he's been getting nationally. We were talking about maybe this is a player that's going to get some transfer interest outside the league. I don't know you're going to get that now, and if you are, it's certainly not going to be for the money you want because he's not showcased. So, these players. This is a team that's been injury hit to the extent that is amazing and absurd. But maybe you take a guy from USL if you're not going to play him anyway. If he's going to be on the bench for 9 of the 23 games in which he's available, like just take a body from Loudon. If he's just going to be a body, like. Let him go play in Loudon or somewhere else that's actually competing, like you said, at a higher level. Anyway, DC United, they played a game.
Yeah.
Stuff happened.
Yeah. Well, I do want to get to I do see Gregory's question here. And what I will say is basically, how do you see the impact of MLS2 teams in USL? I think at first it gave basically teams and games, and it gave them more teams we could play. And I think that in and of itself was important. We weren't playing, Louisville for the 15th time in the season. So I think in that sense, it kind of helped things in sort of who you played and having more variety in that regard. But I'll say, I'd much rather play against teams from, that are not independent teams. The rivalry we have with Madison, that win was incredibly fun. We get a last minute win against Toronto FC 2. While certainly fun, not as big as going and winning that game against Forward Madison, considering the rivalry, the history, the fans, all of those things that are combined, all those outside factors that come in to a game. So I think I like the idea. I like the idea that, if MLS is serious about a reserve league and serious about making it reserved and making players develop, I think I'm fine with the USL saying, basically MLS saying, we're going to go do this thing. USL's like, fine, we're going to be independent. Thanks for helping us kind of get a strong base. And I think we can kind of go our own way with this. So, and they've got plenty of teams lined up, as we said. So I don't think they're worried about sort of losing that. But we'll see. Let's talk DC. I saw that question. It's a good question from Gregory. So I wanted to make sure I answered it. But let's talk DC. DC United. Let's talk a little bit about the good. Let's at least bring it up. DC United getting a 1-0 victory last Wednesday against the New York Red Bulls. A throwback to the past, and I do want to respond to that a little bit because it was a homage. I'll call it a homage to the Benelson era and how they played. But I don't think it was a complete ripoff, let's say, of how Benelson played. I thought there were some things that Losada did that I thought were good and sort of changed the game. And we did not really see that from Ben. We saw Ben basically say, well, we're still up, so let's just run that back again. Let's just hold on. Did you have the same assessment, John, or do you think that was a complete?
I think it was an easy thing was to say Benny Ball because of the score and the way the game rolled out. But
the expected goals, the stats, the shots.
Right, but I think there were a lot of people that brought up why it was different and sort of where the Losada influence on a game, even with the statistics, even with the scoreline, that was different from a year ago or 2 years ago. I think the thing that we want to talk about first, I would like to talk about first, is a little shithousery with the lineups ahead of time in the injury report. where we were told the day before that Paul Arriola and Andy Nahar were injured and out. Of course, these injury reports are not binding. They don't actually do anything. They're just something for the media, basically, to be able to anticipate the game and preview it. And some of the DC media were not happy about this and really, really cranky about it on Twitter. And then he did it again in the Columbus game. So I hope he does it again for the Toronto game. That would bring me joy personally.
Let's be clear. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the reporter's name. The reporter who was upset was obviously Stephen Goff. I think what you have in Hernan Losada.
Someone was mad about fantasy implications, by the way.
Well,
I saw on Twitter.
And that's an interesting point. I do wonder as MLS starts getting more into betting, as they start getting more into those types of things, I am wondering if there's going to start to be some more stricter enforcement. Basically, if you put the player out, you can bring them on, but we're going to fine you a certain amount of money. We're going to, deduct you GAM or something like that. So make sure that report's accurate. Basically, I could see the league, pulling something like that at some point, because that does impact fantasy. That does.
Then just say everyone's questionable. Just say everyone is questionable. Every single person is day to day.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what might happen. Ben Olsen actually did this a lot. I believe with Lucho Acosta, it was like he basically left at one point. I think he was injured, and he was basically making him questionable for at least a month. He was listed as questionable because he didn't want to, let fly that he was going to be out. Who knows what Hernan was doing?
Do it again, Hernan. Every time. Do it all the time.
I will say this I think Hernan is the first coach that DC United has hired that doesn't care that Stephen Goff is Stephen Goff.
He really doesn't.
Ben Olsen knew who Stephen Goff was. He, long-term relationship. Bruce Arena knew who Stephen Goff was. Tommy Sohn, Thomas Ronga, they all knew. This guy Hernan had no clue he probably after our first interviews, he was like, who is this guy? He has, I don't know if you guys know in the press conferences, he has called out, he has never credited Stephen Goff for anything. You know who he has credited? Jason Anderson. over at Black and Red United.
He loves and we love some Black and Red. So that's I think that's great.
Yeah, but that's just there is some animosity between the media. Fun times. I don't know if that's going to come back to bite him because obviously the media can kind of
not in this town, man. I was thinking about that. There's no drumbeat to fire Hernan. They'll be like, dude, whatever, man. No, get out of here. I think the funny thing too for Hernan is he's like, I got a 3-year contract. I am not extending it. I do not care if Stephen Goff gets mad at me. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to get a good job. It's okay.
We'll see. I don't know.
I think
you think he leaves after?
I do. Folks, enjoy this time. I think that this is a man with a lot of aspiration and a lot of goals. So enjoy this time, and that's okay.
He's got to do something. He's got to do something significant in those 3 years. I think he's got to get this team on some type of run. This is
or they don't fund him and he walks.
Yeah,
he does a Mourinho. Who's the player I'm thinking of? Our coach. Conte has quit on the first day of the season multiple times for different clubs. It's like, oh, you're not gonna give me money. All right, I quit. Goodbye. Good luck. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I don't. So, if this team, here's what I will say about whether I think or not leaves. I don't know if he'll leave. I don't know if he'll be here for 3 years and leave. I don't. Maybe that my mind just doesn't want to comprehend that. I think a lot of people and I feel it comes from certain people are very much still drawing on what DC was like 2017, 2016. I know that's not necessarily that long ago. I think this team has gone in, they've, hired Lucy Rushton's come in. Lucy Rushton's looking for somebody in data analytics. They're announcing that they're hiring people. They are, seeking owners. I think part of that is to kind of fund some of these efforts.
Yo Gotti's gonna use his chain as a collateral. It was $25,000, something like that.
Yeah,
that's GAM money, baby. That's a transfer fee for somebody.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm sure I'm sure every coach has aspirations. I think he still has to. I think he's done a commendable job this season. Almost part of me is almost like, well, he makes the playoffs, it may be easier for the team to say, well, we're so close. Look, we have these players injured. We'll just get them back and we'll, run this back again. I think missing the playoffs maybe can kind of push the ownership a little bit to maybe make something happen. We'll see. This is going to be I think this is a off season where DC can shed a lot of preconceptions about them if they can deliver. You have a coach now you brought in. You didn't go out and get, you didn't bring in you didn't bring in a Dominic Kinnear. You brought in a guy because you saw what he could bring, you saw what he could do, and now you have to deliver what he wants. He's shown you what he can do with this team. He's shown you what he could do with a team that finished bottom of the table. Yeah, they were a point out of the playoff spot, but let's face it, that team was just, there was nothing like we've seen here.
This is, it's like buying a nice car and never changing the oil. If you hire Hernan Losada and have aspirations and you know what? I think we're just going to get Ramon Abila again. He's going to start. I mean, I love him, but
yeah, and you don't have to. I don't think this team. I don't think Hernan. I really don't think this team has to go out and spend like they're Atlanta. They don't have to go out and drop $15-20 million on.
Just got to cut dead weight. Every player has to be able to be on the field.
You need and we'll. I think I want to table this till the end of the year, but I think there's a lot of conversation going on about, is it a depth issue? Is it a starting issue? And I've seen a lot of people kind of hone in on, I think, the wrong idea here on some of that. But let's
just quickly, 6.36 players per game. Not available. So that's,
and we'll see,
notable.
We'll see. But my big X factor in this is the training facility. What can that do for this club to have a centralized? I mean, will it make an overnight difference next year? Probably not. I mean, maybe you just get lucky, but I think over time you see those injuries get reduced. You see players recover quicker because they're not, shuttling between, an orthopedics location or something like that. They're actually in a training facility with dedicated staff. They're able to better monitor them. Just a better setup overall can make a huge difference. Teams at the top have healthy players and they stay healthy. Even if they suffer an injury, they're kind of able to do that. So, but yeah, let's get back. So 1-0 victory. I do think Losada came in, changed some things. Everybody was kind of groaning at bringing in Drew Skundrich. I actually loved it at the time. That first half, DC was absolutely doing nothing in the middle. Canals and Moreno did not have a good game. They were getting overrun in that middle of the field. They were late to every ball. There was nothing happening in that middle of the field. And I think, if anything, Drew Skundrich brings you that energy and kind of just got the game at least a little bit more in DC's half, where it wasn't a just complete onslaught that we saw in the first half. So actually, I really like that move.
Drew is good in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. He's less good further up the field, and I think we'll have seen that a couple days later. Granted, that's a depth issue, but still.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people rip on Drew Skundrich. I think he would be served better if he is a first off the bench for a Russell Canals, a Junior Moreno, a Felipe type character. He is not a offensive creator.
No.
He did have one nice back heel in the
He's a trier. He is a trier, though. He's not it's just, I was talking to a friend about it, and she thinks it's a confidence issue. I think it's a skill issue, but he's certainly, the reason he plays is A, he's available when he didn't have a meniscus tear, and B, he doesn't make big mistakes. And there are other players on this team who do make mistakes, and they cost goals. And then we'll talk about that other game here in a minute, when there were 3 of them, which caused 3 goals.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, in that game, before we get into the bad of the mistake this player made, Donovan Pines was, the whole defense in that game was phenomenal. In that Red Bulls game, that was, Bill Hamid is starting to come back to his. I'm not going to say the standards for Bill Hamid are very wide, and we've seen him have goalkeeper caliber of the year seasons. I think he was dealing with injuries. I don't think he's quite 100%. But I think as he's gotten more games, we've seen him sort of return back to that form, so much so that I'm hopeful he's going to be 100% healthy heading into next season. Yeah. Again, we're talking about, Hernan Losada, the training regiment's going to be interesting to watch. Can his training regiment get this team in better shape heading into the season than they were at the start of this season? Because if they have a better start to the season, maybe we're still looking at playoffs this season. So I think that kind of wraps up that game.
Kevin Paredes scored his third goal of the year. It was the same.
Picked up an injury.
Picked up a hip flexor injury. His goal was a carbon copy of the first goal he scored, also at Audi Field. I'm trying to think of other things that are really notable.
I will say, nice ball from Julian Gressel. He put everything in those two games into that one ball, and then had nothing left the rest of those two games. Very rough, very, very rough kind of closing to the season for him. I'm hopeful maybe he gets kind of a week rest and to get kind of his head straight. I think people were talking in the Columbus game, he kind of like looked like he was going to try to chip room, and I saw that and I'm like, oh, he totally just mishit that pass. That was not there was nothing intentional about that. Trust me.
But I was Brendan Hines-Ike also got on the field for the first time since July, so that's great. Be really hoping that they exercise the buy option on that. I can't imagine that they don't. I think that's kind of a certainty.
Yeah. I would definitely say so, and yeah, it was good to see him on the field. Then we get to the game against Columbus. DC got their first win, so they did job one. Job two, they needed another win, and they did not get it. Things started off great. There was a really, really wonderful ball from Felipe. He was the one player I thought that actually played really, really well in this game.
He did.
He has a function. I don't know if he's an out and out week after week starter. But as a guy who can come in and kind of give you something different in certain games,
he did pull his equipment and socks off and leave it on the field after the game. So I'm not sure if that's foreshadowing to this is potentially the end of his time at DC United. Could be. It would make sense based on a lot of the other things we know about sort of contract and salary, but. If that was his last game here, he played very, very well. He like you said, left it all out there.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to draw too much into that as just being. If he does that, I guess on a win, then maybe I'm a little bit more concerned. But after a loss like that,
could just be mad.
That pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think he's mad. The contract issue. We also should talk about what happened at the beginning of the game was Yamil Assad's Instagram page. And I'm sure if who's the guy from, I can't even think of his name, the guy from Atlanta who I know he writes for
Rob Ussery.
I'm sure if Rob Ussery had Yamil's phone number, he is probably blowing up that phone.
Right.
He would be blowing up that phone right now trying to get Yamil Assad back. But it looks like Yamil's time at DC is pretty much that was sort of the symbol he's done. Let's reminisce a little bit about this. This was a guy that had a great 2018 campaign. We all wanted him back for 2019. Couldn't work out contract issues. He ends up sitting on the bench most of the time for I think I can't remember his team in Argentina.
Vélez Sarsfield, I believe.
Yeah, Vélez Sarsfield. Thank you. And then kind of comes back and never really was the same player. I think we were all looking, 2020 was a weird year, so maybe we just throw that in the trash. I think we did for a lot of players, and we thought, hey, here's a coach. Hernan Losada plays a pressing style. He was really successful in Atlanta in the same sort of pressing style, and he got into Losada's doghouse. I think he's the first player that we can definitively say, maybe Chris Seitz for some reason.
I think Adoyatsam was there too. That's just me drawing random conclusions. He's out of it now because he's playing a lot, but there are very few, and I think it's all about fitness for the most part. I think it's about players who should be able to play, but just don't. For whatever reason it is, either it's being injured or if it's just not being in shape. I think Yamil looks out of shape. Watching him sort of run, they started to do like end line sprints during the games for the players who aren't going to play, and he looks a little bigger than usual. So I'm wondering if that was part of it. Hard to say, but you would have thought. I mean, performances have also been bad, but
yeah, and I think you have to look at. I think we all looked at the beginning of this season, and we all heard the strong words that Hernan Losada had for fitness, and I think we all kind of thought that's probably going to rub some players the wrong way, and it's probably going to make some players upset. And at the beginning, I think we were all kind of like, well, it didn't. I mean, like a lot of guys seem to be responding. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was a wake up call for some of these guys, or maybe he handled it in a way that it was different. It came from a different place than it sounded cruel, but it was more of a, hey, let's work. We're going to do this. And maybe you have strong leaders. It seems to me that for Assad had the screw you, dude. I'm not going to do this type of mentality.
Which is after going back to Argentina, playing no games, coming here, not doing well. That's a bold move, Cotton, for your next job. I don't know how that's going to work out for him. I hope it does. Hope it works out for him. But very clearly, he is now done. That is that.
I think we will see. I'll be curious. I don't know if we'll see mutual termination. I don't know if we'll see him shipped somewhere else, traded for something.
Man,
we got that half-day trade window coming up in I think December. I think like right after the season, there's sort of that half-day window.
Give me a backup goalie, rights to a backup goalie. That'd be fantastic.
And again, I think also I think we're seeing essentially a player like he also really didn't. I think you looked at this lineup, you had Jordi Reyna, you had Paul Arriola. He kind of lost his place because of DC changed their system too. They were not sort of the 4-3-2-1 type of system or 4-2-3-1 system. They were definitely a more wing back focused, the attackers are going to kind of stay forward. And I think he just kind of lost his place because of that.
Like Joseph Mora, another player who's sort of a casualty to formation.
Yeah, we're getting way too much into this, but let's talk about.
It's because we don't want to talk about the game because the game wasn't fun to talk about.
That's true. But so game starts off well. Great goal from Paul Arriola. Good to see his finish.
Excellent goal. Wonderful technique. And then things went the other way.
Well, so I was watching the game and it wasn't DC. Columbus had the better of play. I'd say from that goal on, for about 10 minutes on to about 30, 40. Definitely better of play from Columbus. I think, but I don't think it wasn't so lopsided towards the Red Bull game. I thought DC still got some chances, some opportunities. They got some corner kicks. There were some opportunities. I know in the second half.
When was the Ola miss? Was that in the first half or the second half?
Ola miss was second half. It was like 50th minute. Because they came out in the second half looking good as well. They really were pushing that. And then, of course, just to get back to the first half, the goal comes off a just horrendous tackle. Tony Alfaro playing as the left wing back, certainly out of emergency, certainly out of a I need to keep my best player at center back because his runs up the center are what make this team go. And if he's wing back, that's a completely different role. He was totally in there.
And he's on one leg. Same as Paul, same as Bill. So couldn't do it.
Yeah. It was just a bad tackle, horrible tackle. He didn't need to make that tackle. He could have stood there. Cross comes in. Maybe Columbus scores. Maybe. But I would say more likely Bill's there to collect it. So
I think Felipe was like 3 feet away while he made that tackle. I mean, that's always easy to look at from when you're not, running at full speed and playing, but that was regrettable. And obviously, Zelarayan wins the penalty and then scores it because, of course, it was Bill's not a penalty saver in games. Not really his thing. We got to look statistically over time. Angus, if you're still hanging online, we'd love information on that. But I feel like he's not. I feel like he doesn't save a lot of penalties.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see Angus. Angus, you're on the line, man. Go ahead, jump on in, my friend. I apologize. I completely missed that.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I'm currently Bill Hamid's penalty save percentage right now.
Thank you. Look at that. I love it. So you made it to both games because Angus, you're at every game. You sir are you're on the season ticket holder ad. You're in articles about signs. You're everywhere this year.
Yeah. So 2020 he didn't face a penalty kick and he didn't save a penalty kick. This year I'm confused as to how Fox has their goalkeeping stats set out because I'm assuming
Don't worry about it.
SV. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
It says he's got 3 in 2021. He's got 3 penalty kick saves in 2021, which doesn't make sense. But one that does come to mind is he did save Carlos Vela's penalty kick in 2019 in that absolute blowout that was eventually going to happen. But he did stop the first Carlos Vela penalty of that game. That's the one that I sticks in my mind.
I think he's done. I think he's gotten. He used to be horrifically bad on them, and I think he's gotten a little bit better. In
anyway, let's. Hey, Angus, talk to me about these games, man. How you feeling about our where we're at here at the basically? I think Ted broke it down. 33% chance likelihood of potentially sneaking in. tell me about the games and how you're feeling.
So that 33 assumes a win.
It does.
Toronto, and you know what? I'm going to say 33 is fine. I'm good with a 33% chance. As long as there is not an E next to DC United's name in the standings, I will not count the team out. If there's anything that this season has shown me, is that I should never count this team out for anything, right? We've proven that when healthy, we've been able to hang with the best of the best, right? Throughout that. Wow, that sucks. We've proven that we have the ability to hang with the best and the best in the East. We've proven we have and we haven't had the chance to play the best in the West, but I'm willing to bet that this team, when healthy, can play anyone that they want and play them close. It's just a shame, really, because I was watching the Columbus game, and man, do those guys look tired out there. I think that's probably the worst part, right? They look beat. They look tired. And I can't blame them. You got Gressel pretty much having played every single game this season, apart from like maybe 2. And, the last time I can think of a DC United player doing that was Steve Birnbaum in 2018 when he played every single minute for DC United. And it was like, wow, that was a really impressive season from Steve. And now we're like expecting multiple players on our team to do that, and that's not sustainable. And it speaks to things that we need to do in the off season and places we need to look to add in the off season. And you were talking about it earlier, but if they don't bring Brendan Heinzleich back permanently, that should be the indication that things are not going to go a good way this off season. But yeah, when I was watching that game, it was like euphoric in the 3rd minute because like we scored, we went up, things seemed to be following the same script as New York Red Bulls, and I was like, good, this is things that can happen. We can make this work. That Alfaro penalty to me was really annoying. Again, for the same reasons you guys already mentioned. It didn't need to happen, and because it did, it sent us into the locker room at halftime with our heads down and dejected, and that's kind of what killed the game from there. You can point to the individual mistakes of Pines on the pass to that ended up on Zelleran's foot, ended up in the back of the net for 3, that lunge from the Har to put Santos in where he chipped Bill. You can look at the individual mistakes, but the team's morale was cut in half when that penalty crossed into the back of the net and ref blew for halftime. That's where the game changed. I think if we go into halftime with lead, we come out of this game with a point. I don't know if it's a 1-1 tie. I don't know if it's a 2-2 tie. I don't know. But I think we come out of it with a point at the very least. And I say this all the time, and I've said this all season, but if we are playing Drew Skundrich from the start, we do not win. We don't push for a win if we are playing a guy like Drew Skundrich from the start. His role is exactly what you said. He comes in at halftime. He sparks the midfield. He presses. He wins the ball over. That's what he does, right? Having him start on the wing because we don't have bodies, and then he played the full 90, but we put in Reyna, we put in Roberto, we put in Wanchope, and so effectively we pushed him back to midfield where he should have come in at halftime for Canals, who wasn't in uniform. Hopefully he's okay. It sucks. It really sucks because like you look at how great Sunday was, and it's like we could have had that on Saturday.
Yeah, look at this graph here on our sheet saying how close we had it until the weather got a little chilly and then we fell off a cliff. Obviously, so much of it to do with players' availability in this last month really kind of kneecapped him for choices. But Drew Skundrich, like you said, as that in that role, not his favorite. If Drew Skundrich is starting from the start as in lieu of Felipe or in lieu of Canals, you might win that game because I think he's in a good spot there. We have actually won games with him playing in that position, but not on the wing. You're no.
Yeah, no, not at a wing where you should be playing a Reyna, where you should be playing a Paredes, where you should be playing a Yao, where you should be playing. List down, right? Go down that list. and it's just like, oh, this sucks. It just leaves such a sour taste in your mouth. And I actually got to meet Jason Anderson after the Spirit game, which is a really cool guy, really nice guy. We were already talking about how nice of a guy he is and stuff like that. But, we're sitting there and the Spirit just clinched a home playoff game, but it seems like like that almost was all for naught. Like, it's hard to celebrate one thing, and then I was just there the night before, and I feel like crap from that too, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got to hope on Wednesday that all those playoff situations go, and then I got to hope on Sunday while I'm watching the DC United game, while I'm waiting to go to the Spirit game, that all the things that happen on decision day go the way we go, and then we're going to go to one of Nashville, New York, or Philly, where we've never won at Nashville, where we've never won at Yankee Stadium, and where we haven't won at Subaru Park in a very long time.
Angus with sunshine, man. That's a scouting report of doom.
Yeah, for an extra game. And it's like, well, looking at that playoff thing, if we go back to September or we go back to August, right? And you know what? Looking at this, look at where the international breaks were and look at where our playoff chances dipped.
This is why I'm club over country, Angus.
You go back to early October, and it's like, you know what? We can do this. We could play any of those three teams and win. I was saying those things, right? And I still can say those things because I still think we have yet to. We played Nashville without one game with Bill Hamid, and that was a draw, right? We had Jim Curtin saying that this was the worst beatdown Philly has had in a very long time, the last time we played the Union. And Yankee Stadium sucks, so we'll just leave it at that. But we got apparently a tiny field legend in Adrian Perez, who should be good at Yankee Stadium. He could be our trick play. I don't know, but God, it frustrates me. And maybe we change the kit man, and they got regular cleats for a Yankee Stadium away day. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just sad.
Yeah, it certainly felt like I echo what you said around the time where you look at that where that height is of before the big dip. I think that was when everybody was thinking we got Flores back on this team. We've got all of our big hitters are healthy now. I think at the time, Kamara was scoring. He's gone ice cold. And nothing could be, exemplified more than I think if he buries that goal, we're looking at a much, much different game heading in. I think we come out with a win if he buries that. And he was burying those types of goals with regularity in the summer, and he went ice cold. He has changed my opinion. I wondered whether this team could maybe have him next season and then maybe just get more spending in the middle. I think we need a designated player striker. I think maybe he's here next year, but I think this team needs to go out and get somebody, spend the big bucks on somebody that can bury the ball, 17, 18 times, not on a PK, but actually from the field. So, it's been a rough fall.
That game where the dip is, right where that apex is, that's Orlando City 2-1. That's what that game is.
Yep.
That's it. Part. Because since then it's been a draw, a loss, a win, and a loss.
Yeah, we're gonna be we're gonna definitely do a post-mortem here as the season. We're gonna look at what I think you hit it right, and we'll talk about it more when the season's over here officially. The international breaks just decimating this team, and I think that's the depth, the functional depth you need there was not able to make up for losing 30% of your payroll due to injury on international duty. But Angus, we're gonna jump here and finish DC United up and talk about the Spirit. But hopefully Sunday is good for you. And if the DC United game goes poorly, at least you'll have a home playoff game to check out.
Hey, I'll probably be there, and I loved the Spirit game on Sunday. I had a great time. That was a fantastic day. You know what? It really was nice. It was a great day. It was beautiful outside, and it was beautiful on the field, apart from the refereeing. But it's the NWSL. What can you do at this point? Right?
Yeah. What do you want? All right, Angus. Thanks for calling, man.
Thanks for calling, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, guys.
Yep. So I mean, I guess to kind of wrap up.
I have it quickly here. Bill Hamid is 30th percentile in penalty kicks saved throughout his career in MLS goalkeeping.
just have your defense not give up penalties. I think.
Well, I agree. Yeah, that's seriously you do the Kepa Arrizabalaga strategy where you sub somebody in. You sub Mendy out for Kepa. You'll sub Bill out.
Just to go over the rooting guide, I think everybody was thinking we're going to head into Sunday without anything to play for, or that it's going to be that won't happen under any scenario. DC will still be mathematically alive in the playoffs. There is a worst case scenario here. That would be New York winning and Montreal winning. I will put my money on Montreal probably winning against Houston. Houston are bad. I think the best we can hope for is a point there. And then I think they have another cupcake of a game, if I can remember correctly. So no, they actually play Orlando, so that's going to be a tough game, and that's going to be a team trying to fight a little bit. So Wednesday is going to be if New York and Montreal both win, it's not over, but you can start the room for what teams need to do in the next upcoming games. You can start to circle the wagons, and the drain will almost be done at that point. If Atlanta go in and win, if Houston pulls off a miraculous win against Montreal on Wednesday, suddenly there is pretty much all to play for heading into that game. There's a lot more opportunities. You're basically looking at New York going into Nashville, which would be a tough game. And basically, a point doesn't do it for them. And then you also look at Montreal. They basically regain control over their fate over Montreal, and then a win. You just need a win, and Nashville not to win, and you're in the playoffs. So the scenarios certainly still exist. There are still options and scenarios. This team will still be alive heading into that final game. How bad it is, or how much they need to do, or how much they need to happen is going to vary depending on Wednesday.
And we don't have the depth to not start the best players we got. So it's not like one of those things where the last game of the season you're like, let's give Chris a start. No.
One thing that was interesting about the game. So the second half, I do want to mention, I thought DC started really well. Came out, pressed. They almost get a goal from Ola. I think
outside
that
of the boot.
Goes in. Yeah. Changes the entire game. It was actually, I think it was a smart finish. I just think he missed it. He's just a millimeter back to the right, to the left, and that's in the back of the net. So I think he buries that middle of the season.
Yep.
But I will say, I think the second goal went in, and I will say that I think Hernan went kitchen sink a little bit too early.
This was the Andy Nahar missed tackle, sort of sellout full length tackle for the second goal, right?
Yes. I think he went a little bit too kitchen sink. I think he could have held some guys back. He could have said, we were pressing this game pretty well. Let's just get back to that. Let's not give up a third because the third's over. A point would have kept this team. It wouldn't have been ideal, but it would have given them a better chance. It would have eliminated Columbus. We wouldn't have to worry about Columbus. And it would have kept this team kind of in it with the chance. So I think he went kitchen sink a little too early, and he brought on a lot of attackers, and none of them did anything. Reyna, Robertha, Albia did absolutely nothing the rest of the game. So I think he sacrificed some cohesion to try to go kitchen sink, and I think he could have held back, and he could have waited a little bit, kept some guys out there on the field. Now maybe he needed to make subs. Maybe there were some guys tired, but I think he went, and I think what he essentially created was 5 guys up the field and 4 guys back, or 6 guys back. And there was no middle. There was no, actual cohesion in that team. Yeah. And they struggled for it, and they could never really get themselves back into that game to get a second to tie it up. And then eventually, of course, the third went in. So
I think it was. So Paul came off at 61. Julian came off at 61. Julian was cooked. I think that was evident.
Oh yeah. Very evident.
And Paul was still playing on one leg. So I think that's, but I think so. The Nigel and Ramon came on in the 69th for Moreno and Ola. So yeah, I think there's something to that there too. But I also think that I think he knew that he was sort of on borrowed time with the legs that were out there. I think that he knew that if they were going to be chasing the game late, I didn't think they had the guns. So maybe if they could pull it close and maybe just ride it out for a draw, maybe that was the plan. But so we've got the Andy Nahar slide, sort of sell out last chance tackle. Did not make that happen.
Then, another tackle. I don't think he needed to make. I think if he had,
just stay on your feet and keep running.
keep running, track back, basically cut off any sort of pass, any sort of angle. I thought that was a bad play. And then I think it was just I'm less mad at Donovan Pines' pass. I think it was just kind of a misplayed ball. He was just trying to kick it out. I think that's the least egregious of the three.
If he was out, it was at a 45-degree angle towards the middle of the field, so he was going the wrong direction. It was not the worst of his goal gaffes of the year, but it was. Yeah. And like we already said, that the game at that point, that's the 76th minute. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they were going to find that goal, but the game was certainly over at that point. Once that play occurred, but. There was lots of conversation about him as a player. I think he's going to be one we're really going to analyze in the closed season about sort of where has he grown, and he certainly has grown in a lot of places. And sort of like a player, I'm comparing him to Bill in the way that there are high profile mistakes that happen at a rate higher than they should, but not maybe as much as it seems like they're happening, that are going to follow him for a while until he changes that narrative. That was Bill with stupid red cards early in his career and bad passing. And now I think he's been played enough now that people are starting to say, man, that's the thing with Donovan. He has no ability to pass the ball. He's got no range of passing. He makes bad mistakes.
And I think what you noticed with Bill is it took a while for him to sort of get that kind of respect. I mean, there was times, I think, pretty much mid 2014, we were mid 2015. I think we were all kind of like, he's cleaned his game up. I mean, if you watch this team week in and week out, and the thing is, a lot of people don't. Fans don't.
Almost nobody except for us.
Nobody, basically, we're the ones who watch most of it, and we saw that sort of maturity and development. I think we're seeing it from Donovan Pines. He has multiple games now where he is probably the best defender out there on the field. And he certainly wasn't having that at the beginning of the season. He's got to clean up his game. I think it's coming. I am more confident about him entering 2022 than I was entering 2021 with him. I would be fine with him a day one starter for this team. I think we got to have it now, because I think Brilliant, this is Brilliant out. I'd love to see him as a coach maybe for this team. We'll see what happens with him. He's another roster spot that I think this team is going to have to replace. Yep. But I thought for most, other than that pass, he was probably the best defender out there for DC in a lot of ways. He was keeping this game relatively close and making some runs upfield as well in some cases. But
which are always funny to watch.
But yeah, I want to hit back a little bit. One thing it says, Cogswell Worthington says, DC has started well all season, then they're out of ideas by the 30th minute on. It's frustrating. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't agree with that statement. I think lately, I don't know if it's out of ideas, if it's just energy, if it is just the players. When you're having players like Adrian Perez, Nigel Robertha, and not, Jordi Reyna, Paul Arriola, Ola Kamara when he's hot, you're going to notice a drop off after a certain time. Those players don't have the skill. DC lacks a game changer. Columbus had a game changer on the field. His name was Zella Rayan, and he had at least a couple opportunities. They have Pedro Santos as well, who had almost had another goal that rang off the post. Even in their completely, dilapidated state, they still have game changers, and DC doesn't have that really. I think that's a huge problem. Anyway, bad game. We're gonna obviously at the end of the season, if DC looking like they're not going to make the playoffs, we'll see what happens. We'll certainly have, if it comes next week or the week after, we'll certainly have a complete autopsy on this team. We got a 2-week break if that happens, man. We got to, if they make the playoffs, we got to wait until after the international break.
Well,
before we can play again.
I would like to watch as much of the games. I'm going to see what ESPN Plus allows me to do with archive games in Zone, or maybe get a 1-month subscription to VPN. I would like to go back and watch a lot of these games. I feel like that the season's so long and it happens over such a long period of time that it's really, really hard to develop a through narrative that actually is true. So we'll see. Well, there's lots of stuff to look at regardless of how this next week goes, and we'll have plenty of content. I think, however, we will probably I don't want to say we'll go to every other week. We're going to talk about it. We're definitely going to enjoy a little bit of a break, I think, after the end of this really long season. And really,
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have Spirit playoffs to talk about. We'll see what happens with that. Speaking of Spirit, let's talk about their game. The ownership situation. Let's talk off the field first. I want to definitely touch on that because I think that is kind of like early in the season. If you had told me we're gonna, the Spirit are gonna be third, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I mean, they're killing it. I mean, the atmosphere has to be getting great. Like, everybody's got to be really excited about this team, and it's all the off the field stuff that is just kind of weighing all of the excitement down. It looks like we might have a resolution to that. There was a billionaire, I think.
Yes.
I can't remember his name right now.
No, I can't either. The thing about the billionaire is that he is already I'm going to talk for a minute while you find it. He's a part owner of the LA Dodgers. He tried to buy part of the Miami franchise. He tried to buy another MLS, another component of the team.
Todd Bowley is his name.
Originally from the area, from Bethesda.
So
has a lot of. So here I'll briefly say this. So there's been a lot of conversation about just sell the team to Michelle. Just sell to Michelle. He does not want to. Very, very clearly, he's made it clear that he does not want to. He's also Steve Baldwin. He's also made it clear that he cannot be really made to do something he doesn't want to do. If the universe occurs where you're able to sell this team to a billionaire who is extremely well capitalized, who has been wanting to own a soccer franchise for some time now, and Michelle Kang still has her 30% or whatever in the team, and has the time to be involved because she is still at these games. She was on the field in a full Washington Spirit kit after the game. She is in it to win it. I think that I don't know that that'll persist if she's not the majority owner going forward, but it's a good thing to have someone with this deep pockets in this league, particularly with a team that's losing multiple millions of dollars a year. That would be a great outcome as long as the team doesn't move, in my personal opinion. Yeah,
and I think the fact that he doesn't want to move, it's clear he's from the area, so he wants to keep the team here. That's good. That all is very good. I don't know if I could go through another situation where an owner comes in and this team moves somewhere else, or there's some type of situation like that. I will say that, I would I rather have Michelle in the team or this guy? I'd rather have Michelle in the team because I know Michelle cares. And the financial waving a big bag of money can be enticing, but it doesn't solve. I mean, if this is just another white guy coming in and instituting the same, I hope like you hope. I hope he buys a team and says, you know what, I'm just going to write the check. I'm just going to write the check every week. Tell me what you need. Michelle, I'll help finance whatever you need.
It's an appreciating asset. Write the check. It's an appreciating asset, and I'll take the losses because the losses won't even register to me. It'll be like
Michelle run the team. I hope that is the outcome to this. That this can be not the ideal situation we want, but at least a workable solution in the future, and we can not move on from this, but we can get better by this. And I think it's really encouraging. Michelle's working with Ben Olsen. Yep. So it seems pretty clear that, regardless of whether she was, she's not petty enough to be, she's not Steve Baldwin petty, where it's like, I didn't have a say in you. You're gone after the season. Once I get control of this team, he's like, no, you've done a good job. We're going to, let's work together. Let's figure this out. So I think that's a good thing. I hope that is the outcome here. We'll see. It seems like it's coming to a conclusion, which is good. It seems like the tea leaves are saying the team's going to stay, which I think is very important. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens after this season. And this team is in a good position. They could make a run to the final. They get a game against the Courage, who are not the same team they were. They've beaten them before, at home at Audi Field, not at Segra Field. Win that game. You go on the road to OL Reign, where you have now won twice
on a baseball field.
On a baseball field. I would say the Spirit are favorites to make the final over OL Reign, because if OL Reign doesn't get that 3-0 assessed victory, the Spirit could have very well swept them very clearly. I mean, they clearly have the Reign's number. Playoffs are a different story. We'll see what happens, but I feel very confident the Spirit could end up in the final in Louisville against Portland, and then it's a neutral level game, and who knows what could happen.
And then RFK Refugees will charter a bus out to Louisville if that happens. That would
I don't know.
Not Ted. John will do it. John and any listeners who want to get on the bus will get on the bus. Yeah, I mean, man, Chris Ward, right? Like, what? Who'd have thought after the chaos that? Granted, a lot of this is the players. 95% of this is the players. However, it's hard to apportion credit and blame on these kind of things. But this man took over after just complete chaos, and the Richie Burke situation resolved, and he was in charge. The man hasn't lost. He has put players in positions to succeed. He has not made any weird decisions with lineups. The players all seem to be happy in his media availability. He is calm and considered. It's just the right man for the job at the right time, and it's going to be hard to look past this in the close season.
I mean, if he gets his team to the final, if he wins I don't know how he doesn't keep his job. How do you not let him have the reins?
It's tough. It will be very tough. Yeah. And if he doesn't get a job here, he'll get a job somewhere else, because this is now we talked about this from the beginning of the season. This is a roster that could and should win NWSL the championship. So that he has guided them to where they are still somehow with having to take 2 games as 3-0 losses and still in that frame. Most of that is the roster, but he has done an impressive job at keeping everybody straight in a very, very distraction-filled environment. The players have done a great job themselves, and I think he has also been a part of it. So just a little bit of kudos to Chris Ward. I think he doesn't get enough call out for that.
If you want to know the truth, I wonder if that was the loss. Obviously hurts, but I mean that team basically got 2 weeks off. They got to completely, because they were not playing great. Nope. I'll say, they were still very clearly, they were still struggling a little bit.
I wonder losing, if that.
Though. What's that?
They weren't losing.
Weren't losing, but I think they got that draw against Houston. I think pretty clearly after this situation. I part of me does kind of wonder if that that break just kind of got the players away. It gave the coaches time. It gave everybody. It's hard enough to have this going on during a regular season when you've got it next game. Like, you don't have time to think. I wonder if it almost gave the players chance to just rest and just all right, we don't have to worry about this week. We don't have to worry about next week. Let's just focus on ourselves. Come back, and then we got the season to finish up. Let's do the best job we can. If that almost was a blessing in disguise, because that's when things just started to they went on a tear. They started outplaying those teams, that they played against. I almost do wonder about that, because I felt like after that was their lowest point, when I was like, I'm not sure this team's even going to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I
mean, this is just circling the drain, and they just came out and was just win. I don't know. Something to think about.
Trinity had an opportunity to rest her body. She had been sort of beat up the entire.
The rest can't be understated. Having the rest can't be understated. Every other team had to play. I guess El Rain and they only got 1 week off, but they all had to go play. So I think that may have been a punishment, and they were certainly punished for it with the loss, and I think it impacted their ability. They pick up 6 points in that game. They're competing for the top place in the standings. They're competing for a bye heading into the playoffs. So I think it certainly hurt them that regard, but I wonder if it almost allowed them to rest, and then now they're starting to. And Trinity Rodman has just gotten better and better. I mean, she's just come out of this break, and
she's got to get a call up, right?
I would hope so. You're looking at. I think it's going to be between her, Midge. I think Midge Pruce, who I think has also done really well. I think everybody's been clamoring for her to get a call up. Carly Lloyd is retired now, so she's off the roster. Who kind of slides in as that sort of next player. I think we're going to talk a lot about the U.S. women's team, and they played a game against Korea. They played a lot of the old guard against Korea, 0-0 draw, and then they played with sort of the younger guard. They had a lot of younger players out there.
Andy anchoring the midfield, and I think we're going to see her. I think she's similar to the way that Paul Areola has got his way under Greg's good graces. I believe that Andy is going to find herself in that spot and sort of seeing herself start every game. So great news for her.
I think it's going to be a question of it's going to be extremely difficult because of the financial weight that players like Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Kristen Press, Rose Lavelle's a different story. She's still young. She still has at least a good couple World Cup cycles in her. It's so difficult for, I guess, from a financial. It's not like the U.S. men's team where, obviously, Bradley and Josie Altidore were not liked, but imagine they were liked. But the team still missed the playoffs. It's very easy for the U.S. national team to be like, all right, we're just starting over. And they already had players that were already bigger than them. And Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, all those, Tyler Adams, all those guys were on their way up at that point. It's a very different picture for the U.S. women's team in that, people, the diehards like us, see the decline in really, Alex Morgan, I think, is still probably pretty good, but yep. Like the players like Lindsey Horan and Megan Rapinoe, we see that they have lost a step. And then we see all these players playing in NWSL that are just killing it week after week. Trinity Rodman, Ashley Sanchez, all of them. And so we see it, but from a general perspective, I guess, from a people that come out to watch them play South Korea for the second time.
Yeah, it's such a marketing decision.
They want to see Kristen Press. They want to see Alex Morgan. They don't, they might love Trinity Rodman when she's out there in the field, but she's not going to sell tickets.
And they don't know her yet.
That's the financial aspect. Yeah,
it's very much and we're going to talk about this here in a second. It's very much a entry level job needing 3 to 5 years experience. You're going to like Trinity, but you got to call her up first for them to like her, because a lot of people aren't watching the Spirit. So speaking of players who should get a call in potentially, this is based from a question from VAASU, wondering why people don't seem to mention Ashley Hatch when they talk about people potentially playing for the national team. She won the Golden Boot, so I don't get it. So we had her on before the season, and she had spoke to Vlatko about what they needed to see, and they wanted her to score more goals in the league. So now she has. She's now, I think we talked about it before, it's the lowest season total to win the Golden Boot. So that's maybe a strike against her, but all she can do is score in the games that she's allowed to play. She had injuries. She had games that were canceled without her sort of obviously involvement. And she had to play a bunch of games at Segra where it's for her to score. So I feel like there's a good chance January camps are a chance to experiment. I also think that Ashley Hatch could be, I'm trying to think of players like this, like Jeff Cunningham, Wando, like players who excel in the league and then almost get sort of like we have to call you in. We've got to give you an opportunity here, but they're just not as flashy as other names that they could bring in from other places. I think that could be, unfortunately, part of her role. She's got the skill set. It's all over the place, but it's not flashy.
Yeah, it's very similar, I guess, to kind of a Abby Wambach type of player, in just, she's a target type forward. She's a finisher, out and out finisher. I think the biggest problem, and this is up and down the field, is right now you have Alex Morgan, she's 30. So I think I guess we're looking at, the COVID is completely screwed up. We got 2 more years. She'll be 31, 32. She's going to be on that field, I think, for the World Cup. You've got Christian Press, who basically is the next person to sort of take over that mantle. There's just such a log jam, I guess, at the front position, that it's going to be very difficult to sort of break through in that regard. And you've got, Midge Bruce coming up. You've got Trinity Rodman can maybe slide in as sort of that attacking type of role. I don't know what type of position she would play on that national team. So I think it's also a case of, she's 24, 25, 26. There are a lot of younger players that are excelling so much, and they're generating. Trinity Rodman generates a lot of attention, unfortunately, of who her father is, and there's a lot of there's a lot of players as well that generate that attention, that I think it's going to be difficult for her to make it through. We'll see. I've been wrong before. I thought Annie Sullivan was done after she didn't make the Olympics. I was like, I don't think she's ever going to see the field, and she has used her opportunity wisely to sort of break in, and I think now she is absolutely an out and out starter for this team. I wanted to look at because I know it was a younger lineup. I guess she had Carly Lloyd, Sophia Smith, Mallory Pugh as well has had a resurgence, and she was a long time start. Yeah, she's a long time star for this team. So it is incredibly difficult, I think, for her to. And Rose Lavelle, I didn't even mention Rose Lavelle. So in that attack, there is not the a lot of the old guard that you could see them breaking through. You're talking about who can replace Carly Lloyd. You're not looking at Ashley Hatch. You're looking at Trinity Rodman. You're looking at Midge. You're looking at Midge Pruce. You're looking at a lot of other talent sort of coming from NWSL, a lot of younger talent. And I think she'll get some looks, but I don't know if she'll get the looks that we're thinking that she'll get. So we'll have to. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Lynn Williams as well, another name who's definitely broken through as a striker for this team, and she is probably the next person to really take over that maybe that Carly Lloyd role from experience. So there's just so much talent in that attack. Even if you take out Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe, it's incredibly talented. So I think that's the biggest obstacle facing Ashley Hatch. And again, yes, she won the Golden Boot, but she won it with 10 goals. You won't see many top-level professional players, men's or women's, win a Golden Boot with 10 goals. So, yeah.
Do you know how many goals Rose Lavelle scored this year?
How many?
She scored one goal.
One goal. Again, it's the same story with Rose Lavelle in that, and also the nature of how the national team is. Were there any national team players that pushed the Golden Boot that play regularly for the national team?
Well, LaRue no longer, obviously, and Morgan earlier on in the season was close. But no, Bethany Balcer is not really in consideration. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's one of those things. I think that you won't find league success translating to opportunities. I think because of the way the number of players they have to call upon, well, it's a challenge.
Well, what has to happen? What has to happen is a couple of things. First of all, NWSL has to pay players more, so it becomes the biggest problem facing success for national team players is that their contract is, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, their contract is not owned. Kelly O'Hara, I'm not sure. I think Indy Sullivan might be paid. That's probably going to change. She's probably going to be an allocated player next year with how much time she's getting and how good she's looked. But you look at, Kelly O'Hara, Emily Sonnet, those players are all paid by US Soccer, paid directly. They own the contract. So if US Soccer says, "Hey, you can't play this player. We need her rested. We're worried about her minutes."
I think Sonnet actually made it off, but yeah, I think Sonnet actually is now on team payroll. That was beginning of the season stuff. So I think it's just Kelly O'Hara that currently. But yeah, that is the governing problem. That's the serving two bosses. Yeah, it's no good.
I hate it, and I want it. And it's not anything against U.S. Soccer. By the way, I was just looking. Trinity Rodman is actually second, tied for first in the league on assists. Mm-hmm. That completely blew me over. I did not even notice that, ahead of players like Jess Fishlock and some others. But that is the thing that the league needs to solve, is they need to start paying their players more. They need to start saying, I think U.S. Soccer would love it if they could say, you know what, we can pay what, Matt, we can pay Megan Rapinoe what she's making on the U.S. national team. We can just take over that contract. We can have that contract. I think the players would appreciate it as well, because that signing a contract with a professional team gives you that guarantee. The national team has shown they can cancel contracts whenever they want. They can, we saw it happen with, I'm sure there's some rights they get with that contract, but I think they would appreciate it. And I think it would allow the league itself to grow, for in that regard. And they would have a more regular and stable paycheck sort of within the league. So I think that's something that's got to change. It's got to change quickly.
Angus talking about Aubrey Bledsoe needing to be in the U.S. conversation. Aubrey Bledsoe, the Washington Spirit, the second in the league on goals against, only allowed 20 goals. So the defense was stout. And she started every game because that's what she does. Talk about a hard position to break through as a goalkeeper for the women's national team.
Yeah, and you've already got French, who's been kind of touted as sort of that next player up, as sort of the replacement in goals. So I think that's, again, very, very tough, very, very tough to break through. We'll see. I think she could certainly do it. I think if she has another good season, she could certainly do it. And this will be hopefully this will be kind of like the first like normal season with like I think there might be some qualification going on. Another thing NWSL needs to do is start respecting like international breaks, because it's really annoying to have like players that are gone for so long. But I think we're gonna have like maybe some World Cup qualifying. It's usually pretty short for the national team, so I think we'll see a little bit of that. All right, folks. Whew, that's gonna do it. This is a long show. Thank you all so much for listening. Twitch.tv/RFK Refugees. Obviously, if you have a Amazon Prime sub, drop it. We're still on Patreon.com/RFK Refugees, so definitely drop in there. And we will catch you guys next week. Vamos.